Today on Better Bad Ideas, we talk politics with Senator Marshal from community college to Kansas State to the University of Kansas Medical School, the United States Army, and now a U.S. Senator. We talk about tariffs. We talk about Amazon. We talk about the future of America. But more importantly, we talk about how important it is to work bipartisan to make America prosper and to make us all proud to be Americans. I'm Sean O'Brien, General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Put your helmets on, buckle your chin straps. It's a full contact sport. We're going to find out who has a better bad idea. Well, listen, thank you for coming on today. I'm a huge fan. I have to ask you though, you went to college, Kansas State.
Right.
Then you went to University of Kansas Medical School, did your residency in Florida, got married, joined the Army. What made you want to get into politics? Is this a better bad idea?
Well, Sean, good morning. It's great to be with you. So we were living happily ever after. I'd practiced medicine for some 25 years, a little city called Great Bend, Kansas, delivered a baby most every day for 25 years. And our congressman got kicked off the House Agriculture Committee. Now, we've had someone on the Ag Committee since the beginning of time. It's the number one driver of our economy is agriculture. So it was a bad day and people started recruiting me to run. I was at a point in my career where I'd been, like I said, on call every day, every other day, 25 years. And my wife saying, something's got to give here. Something's got to give.
I know you really can't say I can't show up for work if someone's going to be in labor and you have to deliver a baby, right?
Yeah.
You can't call in sick.
No, you don't. And that's just it. So I didn't take a day off for years at a time. And it was to the point where I didn't have burnout. I still loved my job, but it was time when most obstetricians in their career say, okay, what's next? And just coincidentally, this congressman gets kicked off the House Ag Committee. People start recruiting me to run.
Did you have any idea that you would be in politics? Did you have any idea, even towards not the burnout, but towards winding down of your medical career, did you ever think you would be in Washington, D.C. politics? That was not a goal of yours, correct?
Yeah, that's interesting, Sean. So my wife would say on our first date, I laid out our goals in life, my goals in life. And she said the last one I said is be a U.S. Senator. I wasn't in medical school yet. We were waiting to get into medical school. I meet my wife. We get engaged like 9 weeks later, get married 3 months after that. Been married 42 years now, I guess, as well. And then I didn't mention it again until this moment of my life.
So you gave her your whole resume on day one of the date?
Yeah, my plans, my goals in life. Yeah, was to go to medical school, have a family. I probably even said I wanted at least 5 children. Maybe I may have said enough for a baseball team. I can't remember.
And then you joined the military as well in between here somewhere, and you retired as a captain.
Right.
Was that during medical school? Was that before medical school?
So it was during medical school and residency. I would have been in the Army Reserve as well.
Wow. What made you do that?
So since the Civil War, someone from every generation of my family has served. We were at Gettysburg this weekend, and 4 of my great-great-great-great-grandfathers served in the Union Army in the Civil War. My mom's uncle served in World War I at the Argonne Forest. 2 of my dad's uncles were at D-Day. My dad served, brother served. And to me, it's kind of a family. It's like you feel like you need to do it.
It's an obligation.
An obligation, but I want to pass this on to future generations. And I mentioned earlier, before we started, my son is in the Army Reserve now. I just spent a year over in Poland as well. So I think it's for my life just wouldn't have been complete if I hadn't served in the military at some point.
So by this congressman getting booted off the Agricultural Commission or Committee, I think everybody realizes Kansas is a huge farming state, very important, very influential to agriculture. It's amazing how people don't realize and how important it is to be active and effective as a legislature and be on these committees that actually are reflective of the state you represent. Why did he get kicked off? Was it politics, or was he not doing the job, or what was the case?
Yeah, I told people, and with all due respect, he was just didn't get along well with other people. And he voted against a farm bill. So he was I would consider myself a pretty conservative person, but he worshiped at that trough, I would say, and just refused to give an inch on anything. And I wish up here I could have it my own way, but he refused to give an inch on anything. He got crosswise with the Speaker of the House, and the Speaker that has basically authority to decide who's on what committee. He kicks him off the committee.
Yeah, so he's irrelevant at that point for the state.
Irrelevant is right.
The state he's representing, but more importantly, the constituents that depend on him to have influence and have a voice at those committees. Which is funny because right now in politics, and I think we saw through this election, and I think you would agree with this, the Democratic Party, who once championed the working class people, seemed to forget who they were actually elected to represent. Do you think that's an accurate assessment?
It absolutely is, Sean. As I think, and I'm going to say this to your audience: I'm an American first. I never grew up with Republican or Democrat on my shirt sleeve. I was always an American first, a Kansan first as well. But in my humble opinion, the Democrat Party left hardworking Americans. That they are not the party that they were when I was growing up. They turned their back on hardworking Americans, people that carried their lunch pail to work, and they became the party of the elite, of coastal elites at that, of the highly educated, of the people that want to tell you how to live your life. And I don't know about you, but Kansans had this libertarian streak down their back that, look, we want the government to make sure that our borders are secure, our families are safe, that we have interstate commerce, but leave us the heck alone otherwise. Don't tell our school board what our children should be at, what classes they should have. Don't tell us what should be on their school lunch. Don't tell us we have to take a COVID vaccine. So I think that Democrat Party left that working class people, and they almost became a ruling class, a totalitarian class, if that.
We always talk about, different scenarios with the Democratic Party, and I'm a Democrat, as you know, but it's not the Democratic Party that we grew up with. But it's like, do they have the ability to fix the Democratic Party, or are they just far too gone? And will the Republicans be able to actually represent working class people? Because I think you make a great point. The Democrats are viewed now as, beholden to the elitist, where conversely, 15, 20 years ago, that was the Republican Party.
It's just, I'm not a political scientist, as you know, but I've tried to understand it a lot better now. Certainly, the Republican Party was the party of Wall Street, but we've become the party of Main Street. And, I didn't go, when I ran for Congress, I didn't know what a populist even meant. I knew that I liked Teddy Roosevelt, though.
Sure.
When you sat there and who do you identify with?
I think everybody did, right?
Yeah, well, I think so too. And so when I ran for Congress, I was still trying to determine who I was. What was my person? I had my values, right? You always stay true to your values: faith, family, community, education. Those are my values that I knew that I would take with me. And I knew I thought we needed to balance the budget. I thought that the national debt was and I still do, our number one long-term problem as well. But to get back to your questions, the Democrats have to stop digging first. That's the first thing you have to do, is to stop digging. My mom just said that a couple weeks ago. And I say, yeah, I'm going to give them another shovel. So I don't know what the future of their party is, but I do believe that the Republicans are filling that vacuum. And more, and especially with President Trump's leadership, we have become this more of a populist party, if you will. I don't think I've ever thought President Trump wore Republican on his shirt sleeve either, like myself.
Yeah, well, I think it's important. Trump was a Democrat at one point in time and obviously fell out of favor with the party. But President Trump didn't support you when you first ran for Senate in 2021, did he? He supported your opponent, who was far to the right.
That's a good question. He would say that he didn't support either one of us.
Okay.
So I think he did his best to stay neutral, and certainly never worked against me, I didn't think. But I think he tried to stay neutral as far as I knew.
Yeah, and you've been pretty consistent as far as voting with President Trump. But with that said, you've also emerged as, a champion for working class. I mean, there's no harder working class in this country than farmers and agricultural workers. Do you see the Republican Party? Because they talked a lot during the election how they wanted to be the working class party. They wanted to represent working class people. But some of their positions over the years hasn't reflected that. There've been attempts to do national right to work and all these anti-worker legislation. Do you think, and I know I've been working hard in my day job to try and foster relationships with Republicans and explain, why certain things in labor are important to us and why national right to work is detrimental, why certain positions that the Republicans have taken in the past are not good for working people. Do you think we have the ability to work together and to make some change? And look, I think we've had these discussions many times. We're not going to agree on everything, and that's okay. But the things we can agree on the betterment of working people, farmers, agriculture, is something that we have to find common ground on.
Yeah, Sean, as long as you and I agree on the same goals, I'm going to sit here and keep having a cup of coffee with you. If we don't have the same goal on a specific issue, it doesn't mean you're wrong or that I'm wrong. It just means we need to probably move to a different topic. And I think that you and I, America first, American jobs first, we want everyone to be successful. We want everyone, you and I have lived this American dream. I'm a 5th generation farm kid, 1st generation college student. My American dream was to become a physician, move to rural Kansas, raise a family, marry the girl of my dreams, have 4 wonderful kids, 4 wonderful grandchildren, 1 on the way. I got to have a nice home, a fishing boat. I never coveted many things in life. I always wanted a fishing boat. Okay, so give me that one. I drive a truck, the pickup truck. So
what kind of fishing boat do you have?
Well, right now it's a little 12-foot Bass Pro. And I've been through multiple generations of these fishing boats. I started with a 1973 Imp Aztec that I converted to a fishing boat. And it's kind of a combination jet and ski, family boat, that type of thing.
But we want to get you into like a Boston Whaler.
Oh my God, it's too expensive for me. Those are too
expensive.
Too nice, too expensive. Yeah, I can't afford that nice of a boat.
Unbelievable, Here, I think doctors make all kinds of money. Well, they did,
But my point is this: is the Republican Party. And when I came in 2016 with President Trump, and my wife said, "This is the first group of Congress members that come from all the Republicans anyway that are from working class." We had 2 sheriffs. We had the professionals, dentists and doctors. We had 2 military generals, but more and more of us are coming from a working class, is what I'm trying to say. I grew up with union members in my town. My brother was a union member. My uncle a union member. So I saw the advantages of the union. All my buddies' parents that worked in Wichita in the aerospace industry, you just didn't think about, oh, you're union, you're not union. We're hardworking Americans. These are the people that I grew up with. Look, Wall Street's done just fine the last 20 or 40
I think
years.
they've done real well.
They've done real well, and they don't need my help. The people that need help, my kids are all grown now. They can't get into a house. They can't buy a house now because of high interest rates and the cost of living and on and on and on. They can't live the American dream right now, and that's that was the turning point when my wife said, kind of going back a little bit, when people asked me to run for Congress, my wife told them, no, he's not interested.
This episode is brought to you by Catches Law Group, proud advocates for injured workers and their families since 1986. If you've been hurt on the job, navigating the workers' comp system can feel like fighting an uphill battle. That's where Catches Law comes in. They've recovered over $3 billion for hardworking people just like you, and they don't back down when your rights are on the line. They know what it means to stand shoulder to shoulder with unions and workers across the country. Because at Catches Law, it's not just about compensation, it's about justice. Learn more at catcheslaw.com, KECHES law.com. But Catches Law Group does a great job making sure that they fight hard on behalf of injured workers. Most of the time, employers don't want to recognize that the reason why people get injured is because of the demands they put on their workers. Catches Law makes certain that they fight hard to ensure justice for those injured workers. Please visit the website at catcheslaw.com. That's KECHES law.com.
And she said, you need to stay home and finish raising these 2 kids. We had 2 in high school still. But then we had our first grandson. And this is 2015. And she looks at me.
So you worry, like I worry.
Yeah.
You know, you and I we're at an age group. I don't think we're that far away in age where, you know, it's really these decisions being made now are not going to affect us. They're going to affect our children and grandchildren. And if we are not making the right decisions as a country, it could be catastrophic for our children and our grandchildren.
Right, Sean. So I wake up every morning. My prayer is that I would do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly.
You don't pray for the Teamsters in there?
I should. And then I pray that I'd be a message of hope. So that's where the Teamsters come in. I'm trying to give you guys a message of hope that I can help Sean O'Brien
we need all
be
the
a better
hope we
leader.
can get. Well,
right?
It certainly can be a better leader, that's for sure.
So, you know, back to this American dream is what does justice look like? It looks really simple sometimes, but I'm not worried what the headlines are tonight. I'm trying to base my decisions on long-term outcomes. If I make a decision that's going to benefit somebody in 5 or 10 or 20 years from now, and I get fired by the people of Kansas here in a couple years then so be it. And this is why I love President Eisenhower. He was our 34th president of the United States. He grew up maybe about an hour from where I grew up, and I followed his career, but he made long-term decisions. When he finished being president, the historian said he was the 31st best president ever. But today, most historians say he's one of the top 5 because he made long-term decisions rather than just worrying about tonight's headlines. It's so frustrating that you or I make a decision today, and then tonight the press judges us and say you were right or wrong. Well, I'm going to let history judge us. You've got people that are shooting at you saying, my goodness, why is he reaching out to Republicans? And the point, you know, back to what you said earlier, there is an opportunity for you and me to work together because we share the same common goal. We want America to be great again.
Yeah, we want America to be great again. I think we want the American people to have a sense of pride in our country once again. You know, it's funny you mentioned how you make a decision now, and we make decisions every single day, and we make decisions based upon what's in the best interest of the people that we have to represent. And it's funny, you know, when I'm telling people all the time, look, we want to leave this organization better than we found it. We want to position this organization for the next 10, 15, 20 years, for the next generation. And what decisions we make today may take several years or may take a decade to reap the value of those decisions, but you have to be patient. And if they're not working, we always have the ability to pivot and move. And you make a great point about the media. The media is toxic right now. Yep. I mean, no matter what you do, and I say this all the time, you know, President Trump could find a cure for cancer and he's going to be criticized because he found it too soon. You know, so it's like you can't win on certain things now, and people have so many opinions, and opinions do matter. But if you have a difference of opinion than I do, why should you be right or be wrong, or why should I be right or wrong? It's like toxic, and it shouldn't be this way. I'm just wondering, is there a way we can fix this, or is it just going to be an evolution that just keeps going on from political election to the next political election?
Well, Sean, we need to ignore some of those headlines. And I always thought that you and I can take 2 + 2 and make 8 out of it. Mm-hmm. That as opposed to working by ourselves, we just get 2 + 2 and get 4. But together, you take the best of your ideas, the best of my ideas, iron sharpening iron. That's exactly, when we're together, that's what it feels like. Because we're willing to say, hey, have you thought about this? If you do such and such with this legislation, do you realize the repercussions? Or, you know, how can we make this bill better so that though it's a win-win situation? I want to go back to and put an exclamation point on this press. We were at Gettysburg yesterday. I took my 2 sons there. And of course, the Gettysburg Address, most people would say the greatest speech ever, but they had a set of headlines on the left and on the right of the Gettysburg Address. And one set of headlines said, this is an incredible speech. It was great. It was phenomenal. Then there's a set of headlines that says it was silly. That the Gettysburg Address was short, it was too short, it was too silly, it wasn't delivered with passion. So my point is, you know, how do we get to a betterment here? Is I think you have to read a variety of news, make a point. So I purposely turn on what most people would consider the more liberal news when I work out every afternoon. And by the way, I'm working out with Democrats in this cruddy Senate gym. I mean, it's the worst gym I've ever worked out in as far as facility goes, but that's okay. But we'll have 2 or 3 TVs on with both channels. And that's my time to sit there and see, well, what is the left raging about today? You know, the stock market, the S&P is up 9 days in a row now. And but what are the liberal stations talking about? They're talking about January 6th. Like, okay, January 6th was a horrible day in our nation's history. We get that. Can we not move on? Can we focus on the future? So I think that you and I have to stay focused on the future. We have to agree upon common shared grounds, turn off the media, and do our job every day. We got to get better every day, staying focused on the future.
Yeah, I mean, the media is definitely scripted. I mean, either way, if you turn on CNN, it's scripted far to the left. If you turn on Fox, it could be considered far to the right. So that's why it's important to have venues like podcasts and venues where you're not scripted, you're not limited on what you can say, and the narrative isn't controlled. But you bring up a good thing, January 6th. There's no doubt that you were opposed to the election, the results of the election, critical of some of the states, and the I think you said there was a lot of power and influence wielded by governors and clerks and everything else. But you also, which I love this quote, you call balls and strikes. After January 6th, you said that we lost all credibility to actually have a rational discussion about elections at that point in time. What did you mean by that?
Well, again, I think that there's certainly a lot of people like myself concerned about the sanctity of that election process. And I think that's important. So important. I think that's the basis of our democracy, is having a free and fair election with credibility to it. And we couldn't even criticize the election results. And for, really every election since I can remember when, Democrats, if the Republicans wouldn't have stood up and criticized the results of the election, I stood up and criticized the results of the election, but we weren't allowed to have that conversation. And, certainly, again, condemn the violence, condemn all those types of things, but there wasn't this opportunity. We should be able to debate anything in this country, any and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't ever get to a point where you see some sort of violent protest or anything else. I mean, right now, it's funny. If we Teamsters or unions picketed 5-6 years ago and there were issues, people were getting indicted. People were getting, incarcerated. Yet we have people right now that can storm the Capitol. We have people that can actually desecrate, historic monuments and burn a flag, and nothing happens to them. Yeah. It's awful. And I think a part of that is, there's got to be a respect associated with being an American. You can have disagreements. You can disagree on policy procedures, but we're Americans, and you're going to respect that. And I think when you got these crazy DSA people out there, and they're promoting violence. I mean, they're firebombing car dealerships. They're burning flags. I mean, we're better than this, aren't we?
We have to be. So my dad was, another part of my story, was the chief of police in my hometown for 25 years.
Oh, you must have got away with a lot of shit then.
Oh my, it's just the opposite, of course. It's like being the preacher's kid. You don't get away with anything. Yep. And my dad always said, whatever, you get punished at school, you're going to have twice that punishment when you get home. And so all of his officers, they knew my car, they knew so I knew I couldn't get away with anything. But to my dad, there was right and there was wrong. There was nothing in between. He was a simple farm kid that had risen through the ranks, didn't get to go to college, but very wise person. He didn't care what your last name was, what side of the street you were from. He enforced the law uniformly. And, he just didn't tolerate vandalism, any of those types of things, right? And that's just it. You have rights, I have rights, but your rights don't supersede mine. So we shouldn't. We should have the right to protest, but to desecrate our memorials, come on. We have to be better than that. And again, I think of the people that died for your freedom to do this, and you're gonna abuse your freedom, is what I would call it. You're abusing the freedoms.
Yeah, it was funny. We had a guest on last week. I was telling you about him, offensive lineman from New England Patriots. You probably heard of the New England Patriots. We've won ton of 6 Super Bowls, I think.
When was the last one? I mean, I wish, think about the Chiefs team we got going now. We're in the middle of this. Didn't
you guys lose to the Eagles recently?
We did lose to the Eagles.
Yeah. I mean, you're only as good as your last win. I mean, we all know that.
That's it.
It's like pro sports are the same as politics.
Eagles
right?
had a great team, and they beat us fair and square, but we're going to get them next year.
We were talking about, taking a knee. Yeah. And I said, when you were on the Patriots, it was before all this taking a knee stuff happened. What would you have done if someone took a knee? He goes, it wouldn't have happened, he said, because we were a team of people that wanted to be a team. We weren't out there trying to be individuals, he says, and that's the problem. There were certain people that wanted to bring their personal beliefs into a team sport that really had no presence. It shouldn't have been there. And he was telling a story how he was in a box right after he retired. And he's in the box, and he's with an Army general and some high-ranking veterans, and they were celebrating some veterans that were overseas, come back from Afghanistan. And he said, I was never so embarrassed or ashamed. He said, when I looked over, honoring these veterans, we're in a box, and I look over, and there's 2 or 3 individuals on the team taking a knee. He said, I actually turned my back, closed the curtains, apologized, and he goes, and I left the stadium because I was embarrassed. So, those are the tough situations that, really resonate with true Americans. It's like, look, you can have your opinions. We're in the greatest country in the world. But, to disrespect and desecrate a flag, we've got the ability to protest, to your point, all over the place. We have the freedoms that third world nations can't even, compare to, where if they did something like that, they would be killed. Right? Yeah. So it's like, find a way to protest. Everybody's entitled to their beliefs and opinions. But where do we draw the line with that?
Yeah, I think I'm sitting here thinking the word respect. When you kneel for our national anthem, when you refuse to put your hand over your heart when you say the flag, so you insult me, my son who's serving, my dad, my brother, my uncles, my that's who you're insulting right now, who fought for that opportunity for you to protest. But Sean, I think the tide's turned. That's what I wanted to say is that, this message of hope I want to bring. I was at a Baltimore Orioles game last night, my first game there. I sat there and thought about Cal Ripken Jr. My son's name is Cal. I try not to bring my children into things.
No,
like
yeah.
But they respect their privacy. But so I was sitting, and when we sing the Star Spangled Banner, I don't know if you've been to an Orioles game or not. You probably don't care for the Orioles, you Red Sox guys. But they say, when they get ready to say, oh, say, can you sing, they all yell, oh, and O for Orioles. That's their let's go, oh, that type of thing. And like, oh, yeah, there you go. And when in Chiefs Stadium, when we sing Land of the Free and Home of the Chiefs, so we all, it was great to see that patriotism yesterday. I think the tide is turning. I think it's in vogue once again to be patriotic.
Well, that's great. I mean, hopefully we can get to that point. But you're a physician. You were working in government as a legislature, as a representative, and then as a senator during COVID. What was that like?
Yeah, some of the most frustrating time of my life. It was like everything I knew about viruses were thrown out the window. So, Sean, I was the first person in Congress to stand up January 2020 and say, there's something wrong with this virus. I don't know what it is. I think it came from a lab in Wuhan, China, and very concerned about it. So it was frustrating just being told, frankly, lies by Anthony Fauci, telling us that if you took a vaccine, it would stop the spread, telling us that if you took the vaccine, it would prevent illness. And I just knew, based upon all my taking care of thousands of people with viruses, COVID was a flu virus, by the way. Those vaccines typically work 30-50% of the time. So it was very frustrating. And, I want to bring a story in here, about my relationship with unions. It was during COVID that the unions reached out to me. And they were frustrated. Number one is they wanted to work. Imagine that. Americans wanting to work. And I'm thinking of the nuclear plant, power plant there in Kansas. By the way, you can't just shut that thing down overnight, right?
Absolutely not.
And then there was a group of people, men and women, that didn't want to take the vaccine. And I thought, not only did I agree with their right to not take it, I agreed medically that I had concerns about there was already studies out there showing young, healthy men especially getting a heart inflammation from this vaccine. And, I don't know about you, that sounds like a pretty serious thing. And there was very few people that were young and healthy, if any, that were dying from this or ending up in ICU. I didn't think the benefits outweighed the risk, is what I'm trying to say. And I was able to form a relationship with those people and fight for their right to get back to work and to avoid this vaccine mandate.
Yeah, it was trying times because it was so uncertain, and everybody had an opinion on what you should do and shouldn't do. And I know in a personal experience, January of 2020, I had a viral infection where I ended up in a coma for 6 days. I got my last rites, and I woke up and I was furious. How did this happen to me? I lived my life pretty morally. I lived a clean life. It was a result of I got a needle from a scar that I had in my eye. I just got a crazy viral infection from it. And so when I woke up, and luckily it happened before COVID, so I had full access to the best neurologist in Boston. And, of course, I'm never going to, no one even knew this happened. I told people like 6 months later. Thankfully, COVID happened because I didn't have to be seen. And I rehabbed myself. I didn't go anywhere. But my thought process was, I'll take any vaccine at the time because I almost died and I want to live a long time. So when you're hearing, hey, this could be deadly, my thought process is, hey, I just rolled the dice once. I don't want to do this again. I've got 2 boys that they need me. So I was on that side of, hey, I'll take a vaccine all day. However, being an advocate for working people, I said, you can't mandate. I was saying to employers, you cannot mandate people to take vaccines. And our members were all considered essential workers. So they were going to work every single day. The construction industry basically shut down in this country, but our members delivers goods and services. So they were going out there. They were getting sick. I mean, some of them died, obviously, unfortunately. But the vast majority of people, I think if you would ask them today, would you take that vaccine again? I think they'd say no.
Yeah. So again, I believe in the safety of physician-patient relationship. A doctor myself, I believe that you and I should have that conversation. The advice I gave to my parents was different than the advice I gave to my children and grandchildren, right? And it is just too bad that we couldn't have, you and I sat down and had a grown-up conversation as the physician for that group of workers to say, we already knew people that if you had diabetes, there was a certain high-risk group.
My son's 24 years old. He got diagnosed when he was 9 years old with type 1 diabetes, and he wouldn't take it because he had an autoimmune, diabetes. It was uncertain what was going to happen. My ex-wife has MS. She refused to take it. They got COVID 2 or 3 times, but they come out of it. So the uncertainty was insane.
Exactly. And I just think that people with type 2 diabetes, I did some volunteer work in Southwest Kansas when this was just breaking. And when I walked into the ER, into the ICU, it was filled full of type 2 diabetic patients, people with chronic medical problems. Those are the ones that were in the ICU. There was no kids in the ER, so they may have been running a little fever at home, but they weren't sick. And I picked up the phone and I called the CDC. You realize that this is a virus that's going to impact people who has immune problems. It's a disease of the elderly. Those are the ones that need to get the vaccination first. And we didn't even do that. We didn't prioritize those who needed it the most. But mostly what I want to say is just that I believe in individuals' rights to have that conversation with their doctor and decide what's best for them. I'm the one that knows, your complete medical history, the pros and cons, the risk and benefits of a vaccine, and I wanted to protect that right for those workers who wanted to make a living and wanted to make their family safe as well.
Were you silenced during a lot of these conversations?
Oh, absolutely.
And were you silenced because of your political affiliation, or why?
So number one is I knew way too much. I knew I was having people that were telling me information from the inside. I knew that they were wrong. They knew that I was a threat to their power. So that I could go toe to toe with Fauci on anything he wanted to talk about and not listen to his BS.
So that's a perfect example of weaponizing an awful pandemic and politicizing it.
Yeah.
And weaponizing against people that actually know the science of what a medical problem is.
Yeah. So, 1 million Americans died, probably 10 or 20 nationwide or worldwide died from this virus. We participated in it. It was one of the biggest cover-ups of all time. And even now we're seeing more and more layers. I guess there's some I hate to say I told you so, but everything is coming out now is certainly consistent with what I was saying starting
Well, the truth
January
always
2020.
comes out in the end. I mean, that's the reality of it, So we're beyond the 100 days of the new administration.
Yep.
What is your take on some of the moves as it relates to a lot of these executive orders? I know immigration was a huge platform for the president. What do you think?
Promises made, promises kept. President Trump campaigned on a pledge to secure the border. Crossings that went from thousands a day to many days less than 200 a day. He campaigned to make your family safer and more secure. And he's deported 130,000 violent criminal aliens so far. Fentanyl deaths are starting to drop. Out on the street, as I talk to law enforcement officers, the stats aren't in yet, but it feels like crime is going down. Rolling back regulations, I think, is starting to work as well. Certainly, the price of gasoline's dropped from $4 a gallon down to about $2.60 a gallon back home as well. So I think that a lot of those deregulatory efforts are taking shape. But now the onus is upon Congress to do our job. We need to do our job and make the Trump tax cuts permanent, continue to fund our military, can fund the border security needs as well, work towards a balanced budget. So I think the president's done what he said he was going to do. Now it's time for Congress to step up and do her job.
I mean, I think it's clear too in your position, which I agree with, is my position as well, is that we're all products of immigrants somehow, some way. We're not anti-immigrants. I think there is a pathway to come to the United States with intention of becoming a naturalized citizen. Will people have the ability to do that under the new executive order under the Trump administration?
I think absolutely so. I think that as long as it's legal immigration, that's the emphasis. Legal immigration. I think that this administration is going to do a double security check on everybody that comes through, if that makes sense. And I think the world we live in, we have to. It's a different world than when my grandfather was conceived in Sweden and the first from his family born in this country. So you're right. We're all products of immigration. That was the early 1900s. It's a different world today.
Right.
And so I think that there's going to be pauses to make sure that security is right. But my hope is that when the border's secure, that maybe in the third or fourth year, President Trump's Trump 47, he looks America in the eye and say, now it's time to fix this broken immigration system. Yeah.
And I think, we're all products of it. My great grandmother came over. I was just recently in Belfast and I got to visit her farm. She left Ireland when she was 18 years old. And
you're Irish?
It's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe that.
I know it's hard to believe, but so she came over here, paid the $5, went to the Catholic Church in Charlestown, and they set her up with housing. They set her up with a job and, obviously citizenship.
But the church did that.
The church did that, yes, which is great.
And I'm all for that. I love... as I talk about my faith, one of my pillars is the federal government is just not very efficient of these types of things, but very supportive of the churches and the religious organizations that help out.
But what's funny about, we talk about politics and how we said the Democrats now seem to be aligned with the elitists. Well, conversely, when you talk about immigration, you look at Hillary Clinton's run and the Democrats' run in the 2008s, 2009s. They were echoing the exact immigration policy that's been put in effect right now, yet they're criticizing it.
It's hard, it's called hypocrisy. Regardless, I'm focused on the future, secure the border. We've done that. Look, the biggest problem Kansas faces right now is water, but number two is the lack of people for the jobs we have. There are millions of jobs out there that we don't have people ready to qualify to. They can't pass a drug test. I want to talk about that just a second, Sean. So my wife and I are both community college graduates. I'm so in favor of our technical colleges, apprenticeships, those types of things. Those are the jobs that are available today. And we're pushing legislation to do just that. We want flexibility with our Pell Grants so that you could use that Pell Grant maybe it's a 6-week program, an 8-week program, pushing to allow your 529 funds to be used towards apprenticeships as well. But we've got plenty of jobs out there, but people aren't qualified for them. Get this, the average starting salary in Kansas for someone from a community college or tech college is higher than the 4-year degree with a fraction of the debt out there.
Yeah, my son went to a trade school just outside of Boston. He played football, took plumbing, didn't want to go to college, went right into the plumbers union, and he's making 6 figures as a 5th-year apprentice, which is important because now he's off my payroll.
There you go.
So I don't have to worry about him, right? But there's a lot of opportunity for electricians, plumbers,
oh my goodness,
HVAC. There's a great opportunity, and I think the trades are a great avenue for someone that doesn't want to come out of college in $240,000 in debt. To your point earlier, how are these kids going to get out of debt and buy homes and start a family? It's difficult, and I'm glad to hear that the government is going to invest in apprenticeship programs.
Yeah, so I think about the wind energy program in one of my community colleges in Kansas. A person can't even get through their first year before they're offered a job. You got to be willing to climb tall structures as well. But it's a great job. Like you said, maybe it's 6 figures in Kansas. That's a pretty good salary as well. And then there's opportunity to go back to school. There's opportunities to go through the ranks as well. I want to emphasize one of the things, I think about your son is that President Trump has promised no tax on overtime.
Oh, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah,
so you're a huge supporter of that. And that was a promise that was made.
Yeah.
What's the reality of that? Moving forward, how does a Democrat say no to that? Because the Democrats have been saying no to everything.
Yeah, they'll say no to it, but so it'll be part of a bigger package, part of this reconciliation bill as well. I wanted to share with your listeners why this is so important to me. My first job off the farm was working at a sale barn. A sale barn, we would run 2,000 or 3,000 head of cattle through it and sell them in a day. So my job was sorting heifers and steers and then scooping a lot of manure afterwards. And we would work this is a weekend job. 16, there was times my brother and I worked 24, 30 hours at a time. So you work that overtime. After 8 hours, you get overtime pay. And I remember the first time I worked overtime, I was looking forward to that paycheck and I saw, my goodness, the government's taken over half of that overtime because it kind of puts you up in a higher, tax bracket as well. So this is near and dear to my heart. I know what it's like to sit there and work overtime jobs in the summer all the way through college. I put myself through college. I worked out the refinery side beside union workers. I was not a union worker. I was whatever the hired labor. But and that overtime, I was what I shot for. But it was just sad to see the government take all of it. One more expression of President Trump, promise made, promise kept, trying to do something for hardworking
Well, you think
Americans.
about it. I mean, people in this country, I know members that say it's not worth working overtime because I'm not going to see any of that money. So that may be another feather in the cap to have people work more hours, see more benefit as a result of it, which will increase productivity. And then we get into tariffs. Tariffs have been extremely
What do you think of the tariff, Sean? Before you put me on the spot.
Oh no, I'll tell you. I've been clear. And I'm taking some scrutiny over some of the positions I take. But again, we morally, I'm going to call balls and strikes. I want to see tariffs on products that can be produced and that currently are competing with America. Like you look at Budweiser. Budweiser is a great American company that we have 10,000 members that brew and also deliver American-made beer in this country. So do I have a problem with Mexican beer being taxed? Absolutely not. Do I have a problem with manufacturing steel back in this country? Absolutely not. I mean, look, we have a great opportunity. I look at Ohio, and I've had this conversation with Senator Marino, and I look at Ohio, and Ohio was once a really blue-collar, a blue-collar state where there was a lot of production being made there, steel. You look at Pennsylvania. I think there's a great opportunity to bring back a lot of that work and create high-class, high middle-class jobs, unionized jobs, where people that may not have the ability to go to college will have the ability to do it. And again, this is a thing that, you talk about a situation where, are we going to see it overnight? No, but this might be something that these tariffs will bring these industries and create industries over the next 3, 4, and 5 years. I think it's good. I feel great about the tariffs. Working recently, Saturday, Christine and I were at grabbing lunch somewhere. I might have had an American beer while I was at lunch, and I got a call from John Voight, the actor John Voight, and he was meeting with President Trump. And as you know, we have 20,000 members that work on motion pictures.
Oh, that's right.
Now you have the motion picture industry now is basically private equity, right? It's all big money Wall Street people, Amazon, Netflix, and it's cheaper for them to take a crew of 100 to Ireland or to Toronto or overseas to shoot a movie. Why are we not tariffing? Why are we not putting strict tariffs on those companies? Force them to shoot in the United States to keep American people working. Yeah. So we've been working on that. So I'm pro-tariff as long as they're going to create jobs, as long as they're going to create long-term sustainability and careers for people.
Was your dad connected to the motion picture industry somehow?
He was. So
he was a star there with President Reagan and some of those movies.
No, he was not a star. No. He was just we call them transportation coordinators. He was basically a rank and file site boss whenever they film movies. Just made sure everything worked good. But no, the O'Briens, we don't have a face for Hollywood. We have a face for radio.
Sean, I want to go back to goals, right? So when we talk about tariffs, I challenge your listeners. Educate yourself. Turn off the media and say,
there are listeners now.
Well, there are listeners now. So listen. What are President Trump's goals when he wanted these tariffs? Number one was to bring jobs, especially manufacturing jobs, back home, and he wanted free reciprocal trade agreements. Those were his goals. Don't let the national media fool you. He very clearly said what his goals were. And I want to talk about these manufacturing jobs for a second, because you said long-term, but I'm seeing the results already. I did a tour right before Easter back home, went to some over a dozen small manufacturing companies. I mean, these are 40, 60, 80, 200 employees, right? And one of them makes windows. These windows are your people are out there putting these in these great, big, tall office buildings and across the country. And Lithuania was dumping windows into this country, and we couldn't keep. That price point was just too much for us to take. But now the sales for that company are spiking. They use American-made aluminum, American-made steel, American labor. So these big folks that are building these buildings, they want the certainty of long-term, that 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year, when they need those windows, they know what the price is. And to a T, all those manufacturing companies are having spikes in sales. It may not be impacting some of your bigger groups yet, but I'm seeing it at the smaller scale already.
Yeah, I mean, I think a great example was, think about the dependability we had on other countries during COVID. We were waiting for products. I mean, that's another demonstrable case that we can make on why we should have production in this country. And I'm excited. I mean, I hopefully these tariffs, and to your point, the media is blowing them up. These tariffs were made. These were bad trade deals made in the early 90s that destroyed American jobs.
Us.
So if we are making an effort to bring back these American jobs, why shouldn't we all embrace it and be for it?
It's that simple. As I think about these trade agreements, we're in the catbird seat. okay, that we are the largest consumer market in the world. So, that the no tax on overtimes. What is your worker going to do with that overtime tax money saved? He's going to go buy a bass boat like I wanted to, right? And that's going to, promote another American job, the people that build the bass boat. So that's the point is that we fuel the economy. Why not make those products here?
So we've been working bipartisan, I think, on a lot of things. Yourself, myself, Josh Hawley, Bernie Marino, and Cory Booker, who's a Democrat, to pass this faster labor contracts legislation that Josh introduced. It's a version of the PRO Act, but it doesn't have all the unreasonable demands that the PRO Act has. But is that something that the Republicans, if they truly wanted to embrace the working class, is that something that the Republicans should embrace bipartisan?
So, Sean, I think everything's on the table. Tell me a little bit, this is your chance. Convince me why we should do this. What do you like about the bill?
I was praying you asked me to do this.
Yeah.
No, it's important because, as you know, to organize in this country, $500 million per year is spent on union busting. And, there's always been this appetite during the Obama administration and then recently with this PRO Act to pass legislation that made it easier to organize. Josh has created this bill, and we've had a lot of input on it, and Cory Booker is going to co-sponsor it. It mandates employers to stay neutral in an election process. Once the cards are certified or the election is certified, to commence collective bargaining within 10 days. And then, the caveat is to, if you can't come to an agreement within 12 months, then it goes to binding arbitration. So it's something that's not evasive on an employer. It has checks and balances and rules and regulations. And at the end of the day, the worker is going to decide whether he wants to join the union or not. It's not tied into any right to work stuff. So it's a pretty simple process that I think the Republicans have the opportunity, because during the election, don't forget, we want to be the working class people. We want to embrace American workers, and that's all well and good, but we should also embrace the ability to allow people to join a union, to get a collective bargaining that's free from any retaliation or retribution. So that's something that's very important to us. And we do have some bipartisan support on it. The PRO Act was used as a weapon. Was going to be used as a weapon in the last election. The FL-CIO has been on board with this. The building trades are on board with this. So it's kind of a coalition to just make unionizing free of retribution and retaliation, and allow someone to get to a collective bargaining agreement within a year.
So, Sean, I've not read the bill. I'm aware of the highlights that you're describing. Everything you said there, we agree on the same goals. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, I think that's the starting point. We agree on the same goals. I think that this bill deserves a full vetting. I think it deserves a hearing, if you will. And I want to hear the pros and cons of it, the risks, the benefits. That's the doctor in me. I want to take a deep dive. So I think it's something we should have that debate. I think Republicans should be open to having that debate and listening. And I think it's a great that you certainly have given us an olive branch. Right. You certainly address some of the things that we could never get to yes on. You put those aside. I think you're two steps closer. And I think it's time for me to take a deep dive, but I'm not going to commit to sponsoring it today.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. But we still have a lot of work to do, and we still got a lot of discussion to have over it. There's always been, the franchise portion of it, where there's been concern from the Republicans that live in, densely populated states that have a lot of franchises. So there's a way to get to yes and all this stuff and satisfy everybody's wants and needs without putting business at risk and also not putting workers at risk. So I think, to your point, we will be having discussion over this, and we will be open to suggestions. And I think that could be this, and maybe I'm dreaming, but I think this could be the start of actually having dialogue and debate and disagreement and actually coming up with something that works for everybody.
Yeah. I just want to emphasize the franchise model is something I love. It's a great, I talk about this American dream. So many people, especially women, veterans, minorities have had their goal to own their own business someday and run it. The franchise model is a good example of able to do that. So I'm looking for the win-win opportunity is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. The biggest issue right now that we have and the biggest employer is Amazon.
Well, let's talk about that a second.
We need to, because you talk about franchise, being your own boss. We have a big effort going on to organize Amazon right now. Amazon is probably the baddest player, not just in the parcel delivery, but as an employer nationwide. They've got a 150% turnover ratio of employees. They hide behind this third-party leasing arrangement that you can be your own boss, but you got to follow the procedure, buy the truck, wear the uniform, and deliver the packages consistent with Amazon's rules and procedure. We've already won a decision of a joint employer ruling in California recently under the Trump administration with the acting general counsel of the NLRB. And Amazon is probably one of the biggest evader of being a good American company. So this is something that would help. This legislation, if passed, would help us to organize Amazon. And you look at a company like United Parcel Service, largest private sector collective bargaining agreement in the country, and we negotiate a $30 billion deal where our part-timers who do the same job as the part-timers that are direct employees of Amazon make $23 an hour, full pension, full health care, but more importantly, a path to a full-time career. And then you look at our full-time drivers at UPS that are direct employees that will be making almost $50 per hour at the end of this contract, get full pension, full health care. Why shouldn't Amazon be held to the same standard?
Yeah. Sean, I was thinking about this issue on the drive here with Amazon, and I thought about the beginning of unions and the history and why this is important. In my humble opinion, unions were typically formed out of necessity. A lot of it was health and safety issues. And I'm sitting here, here's Amazon. This is chapter 17 of the same book, that they're abusing a group of people.
And they have the highest social violations in the country.
What do you mean by that?
They have the most egregious acts. They've got the most charges against them.
Wow.
They've got the most findings against them. Yeah, it's not a good employer. And they focus. People think Amazon's great because they hit send and they get their package, 20 minutes later. But you don't know what those people go through that work in those facilities, what those people go through that delivering those packages. I mean, they are abused. They're not allowed to take bathroom breaks. It's like slave labor right now. And this bill that we're talking about would give us the ability to go in there. I mean, you look at Jeff Bezos. He thinks
he's struggling, isn't he?
Well, he should struggle, right? Because he thinks it should be the United States of Amazon.
Yeah.
He doesn't think it should be the United States of America. And I mean, it was clear last week when he said, he's trying to point the finger at, we're going to put what the price costs compared to what it used to cost. We're gonna list the tariffs on every product we sell. Why don't you list your profit you make off every single package you sell, Mr. Bezos?
Yeah. And
he's just a greedy guy. And
a couple thoughts. Number one, what really got my attention, we've been discussing this now for a week or three as well, is that Amazon's abusing our postal service by making them take that last mile is the most expensive. So they'll use the postal service for that last mile, which I think is a total abuse.
Well, UPS just got out of that business. UPS negotiated their way out of it because they couldn't come to an agreement with the postal service, and Amazon came in and they're going to do it for cheaper money, but it's all about control with them. And they're going to, do that last mile service where they take the packages, to your point, and send them to the postal service because it's cheaper for them. They're going to make more profit off of it.
Yeah. So as I think about the Amazon situation, a lot of this is because they basically control an industry. So capitalism without competition leads to unlimited greed. And I think whether it's, we maybe talk about our credit card bill a second, but I think it's the same situation where Amazon controls this entire market for the most part. And they feel like they can just do whatever they want to do. They've got a captive audience, and you should just be grateful you got a job here. But what they're doing with these terminal I don't know if many people understand this point you're trying to make here on these the drivers out there, that they drive an Amazon truck, they're in an Amazon uniform, they're using an Amazon artificial intelligence to direct the route. I mean, they're controlling their moment. That sounds like an employee, doesn't it?
It sounds like an employer controlling an employee.
Yeah.
And that's our argument. We won that argument in California recently, where we prove they are a joint employer, these third-party leasing arrangements. So it's going to be interesting.
They've abused their...
Yeah, they've abused it. I mean, FedEx has abused it. It's just the nature of the beast right now. But we've got an opportunity to correct this. And get back to Jeff Bezos. I mean, you look at a guy. I mean, how much money do you need? He's like the third wealthiest. He's wealthier than most third world nations, countries. And why do we keep rewarding him with government contracts, with the cloud and all that stuff?
Yeah, I don't have a great answer, but I want competition, whatever we can do to inject competition into the situation. And I want fairness for your employees too.
Well, that's important, because I think, just getting back to the bill we talked about, if there is a level playing field where we have the ability to organize the Amazons, organize the FedEx, we already have UPS, we have DHL, that would regulate the industry, where there'd be fairness and competition all around. And it would come down to the best pricing out there and the best service. So I think that's another big portion of that Fair Labor Standard Contracts legislation. And we'll get into that as we move forward. Where do you see this country going in the next 4 to 8 years?
Well, I think that our better days are ahead of us, Sean. I think that for the first time since COVID, I'm optimistic. I'm very bullish on it. I'm so excited about President Trump's agenda. I feel like that silent majority that you and I knew was out there is finally said enough of this. So I'm excited the direction that we're going. We have border security now. We need to take care of our national debt, though. That's probably the biggest problem that I'm afraid that we haven't addressed yet. We're spending $1 trillion on interest this year. We're spending $2 trillion more than we're taking in. We've been on this sugar high where the federal government has just been doling out money to people. We have 7 million healthy adult men working age that aren't working right now, and maybe they have a substance abuse problem. We have a mental health epidemic. So we got our challenges, but nevertheless, I feel like this big ship we call America is slowly turning back in the right direction.
Now, there's been a lot of criticism about Doge, Elon Musk, and recently it's just been announced that he's going to be focusing on his business and less on government. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think the Doge is set up that it can proceed. I think that they need to continue to figure out where we're wasting money. So in the last 4 years, over $1 trillion of improper payments were made by the federal government. A lot of them in Medicare and Social Security, which makes sense since they're each $1 trillion, over $1 trillion each as well. The Government Accounting Office, and that's their number. That's not a Doge number. That's not a Roger Marshall number. So Doge needs to keep doing its job. And then I look at Congress. We need to do our job.
But there's been criticism saying that Doge is not allowing Congress to be part of the process. And I think that's coming from the Democratic side more than anybody else. Is that accurate?
Then it's on us, right? Then look in the mirror. Then it's on us. There's a way to address it, and it's called a budget process and an appropriations process. We need to take responsibility. This blame game is too much as well.
Well, you get back to past presidents, the past 2 or 3 presidents have always said we need a smaller, more efficient government, right? And I don't think any of us want to see anybody lose their jobs or anything else. And I think we are heading in that direction of smaller, more efficient government. What's the difference between what people were saying in the past and what's happening now? Donald
Trump.
Right?
Yeah, if Donald Trump thinks it's a good idea, then they're against it. And folks have went from an obsession with Donald Trump to a psychosis where they're unwilling to accept the truth and do. Look, I was just as upset with Joe Biden as anybody is, a Democrat is, with Donald Trump. But I had to figure out how to get through the situation, try to stay focused on the policies, not the personalities. I understand President Trump may say some divisive things from time to time, but try to stay focused on the policy side of this as well, and stay focused on the goal. And what you don't see out there, Sean, is I'm part of a bipartisan prayer breakfast where we get together every Wednesday morning, Democrats, Republicans. We have this, my workout time together. Our spouses get together. I even went and visited Bernie Sanders for a weekend. And his lovely wife. And he's a wonderful human being that he and I disagree on a lot of things, but we both love our country.
No, I think that's important. I mean, again, just to highlight the fact that we can have disagreements, we can have spirited debate, but does it have to get personal and venomous where we can't get anything done?
Yeah. I go back to, I think that's what makes my talent is world's experience, is to work in Rotary, as a leader in Rotary and a church, where you're not controlling someone's paycheck or their salary or their benefits. Leadership is working with those groups. And I still have no idea on my church board that I was chairman of if they were Democrats or Republicans. On my church board, it was irrelevant. In Rotary, I didn't know who was Democrat or Republican. We focused on a goal, on a mission, stayed true to our values, those types of things. So it is tough out there. It is. The media keeps pushing you. I'm telling you, they'll write the history book someday, and they're going to say the media was more powerful than the judicial system or the Congress or the president. They're so strong right now. But if we can say focus on the goals, that's when this country is going to make some progress.
Do you think they're strong, or do you think they're just less credible than they've ever been?
Yeah, they certainly have power.
Why do they have that power?
I think the people give them to, and I think it's the access. I'm reaching here for my apps. Why do we have a mental health epidemic in youth and young adults? It's because they went through this social media. You and I didn't grow up with apps on our phone and just instant access to bad information.
Oh, or tracking devices. What is it called? 360? Imagine us being our parents watching everything we did.
There's certain things your parents should know.
I'd still be punished right now at 53 years old.
We'd still be grounded.
Oh my God.
All of us would have been grounded, right?
Unbelievable. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. It's been great, and I look forward to working with you moving forward.
Yeah, Sean, it's great. I appreciate your friendship and your leadership as well, and truly this commitment to make America great again. Thank you.
Great.
God
Thank you,
bless.
sir. I appreciate you.